Next Wednesday, May 24th, I'll be giving a major speech at UCLA titled Woke Lunacy versus Real Revolution. And then, as I am now, I'll be joined by Rafael Caderas. We've been on a speaking tour and campaigned together to take on this woke lunacy. And we're doing this in a time that is very fraught, where the whole future is being fought over. Right now, look around. We're living through abortion bans, anti-trans laws, savage brutality at the U.S.-Mexico border, continuing racist murder by police, and the looming threat of fascism returning to power in 2024, all while this system is hurtling humanity towards extinction with its climate change and the threat of U.S. war with Russia or China, a war which could become nuclear. All this is headed towards something catastrophic, but it also holds the potential for something truly emancipating. Society is splitting apart. There are deep divides among the rulers and all the way down throughout society. And in a moment like this, we could make a real revolution. We could bring forward the people. We could bring forward a revolution, and if we got serious. So this is why we're taking on this woke lunacy, because it poses as an answer to this system's injustice. Woke lunacy, cancel culture, act like they are an answer to the white supremacy, to the gender oppression. In reality, this is a fraud. This woke lunacy is doing tremendous harm. And in my speech, I will dissect this. I will rip the veil off of wokeism. I will show its theoretical underpinnings, and I will bring to bear firsthand experience in the real world, taking this on as a leader in the fight around abortion rights and in the fight for revolution. So wherever you are, if you're in the LA area, you need to get to UCLA next Wednesday night. Wherever you are in the country, tune into a special broadcast of this show, the RNL show, next Friday night. To see this speech and to spread it to others, we need to launch this campaign in society now urgently.
This is an incredible speech that Sunsara gives. She just demolishes this woke identity politics philosophically, politically, morally. You really have to be there to see it and to be part of the question and answer, in the discussion afterwards. So if you are anywhere near Los Angeles, Southern California, you got to get there to UCLA. May 24th, Boelter Hall, 6:30 p.m. It's room 3400. And wherever you are in the country, tune in to this special episode of the RNL show next Friday, May 26th, and host a screening of this. Be part of lifting people's sights to revolution and taking on this woke lunacy.
So, Rafael, you've been out on the campus, actually many campuses, building for this tour, talking to students. And I think it's going to be important for people viewing to learn some of what you've been learning as you've taken this out. And I know if you look at the campuses now, there's a lot of reasons to be very discouraged and demoralized by the fact that the students are not standing up the way they need to the horrors happening in the world. But you are encountering a lot of agonizing and a lot of ways that this woke lunacy is actually just sitting on people's better aspirations. Could you talk about that?
Well, I think one of the reasons that these campuses are so silent right now and paralyzed in the face of, everything you talked about in terms of the situation in the world is exactly because of this framework of woke identity politics, which dominates, and it especially among people who really do care. And there are, students on every college campus that we've been to who are, who do want to do something against racism, against the oppression of women and LGBT people, who do care about people around the world who are suffering unnecessarily, and climate change and all this, but who are really suffocated by this idea. You come to college wanting to learn about the world, wanting to make the world a better place, and then you find out you're supposed to stay in your lane. You're not supposed to talk about things that you haven't directly experienced. White people are not supposed to talk about racism. Men aren't supposed to talk about what women go through, all this kind of stuff. It's, this is extremely paralyzing and demoralizing and suffocating to a whole generation of students. So this is why it's so important that, this speaking tour is coming to these campuses and piercing this whole atmosphere and lifting people's sights to revolution in a whole different way that we could be living and that we could be relating to each other now.
You told me a number of stories, but maybe you could share one of them about some of the professors you've talked to and how intimidated they are by what their students are being whipped up into with this wokeism.
Yeah, I talked to a professor in African American studies who said that she's, this is a good-hearted person who's a very progressive, even radical person, but she's afraid of even using pronouns right now because there's so much obsession with pronouns that she's, afraid that if she accidentally misgenders someone, she might get canceled by her students. She also said she's afraid of talking to her students about Beyonce because she doesn't want to be, say the wrong thing and be targeted by them for that. This is the kind of atmosphere that's, silencing and intimidating good-hearted people.
And it's suffocating critical thought, which is one of the really, really destructive dimensions of this wokeism. It's conditioning people precisely like you said, to think about self, to obsess over self, over identity, over pronouns, to blot out the rest of the world, to only proceed from your direct experience, and to cling to and seek safe spaces from ideas that challenge you. There's a demand for trigger warnings, for canceling professors who challenge your thinking. We've been taking out, as part of this, a quote from Bob Avakian's speech, "Something terrible or something truly emancipating." And in this speech, Bob Avakian just tears apart this wokeism in such a visceral and scientific way. It's actually providing guidance and leadership that we are taking. It's part of why we're doing this tour. So I urge people to go and read the whole section and the whole speech. But we've been taking this segment out where he talks about this trigger warnings and safe spaces and what the atmosphere on college campuses needs to be.
Here I have to say, enough of woke folk who act as if it is actually oppressed people, or as they like to say, the marginalized, who are fragile beings constantly in need of the protection of safe spaces, lest they fall apart at the mere appearance of a triggering phenomenon. And since when are universities and other institutions supposed to be places where you are safe, not just from physical violence of one kind or another, and from overtly threatening or clearly degrading verbal assaults, but from ideas, statements, etc., that simply make you uncomfortable? How are you going to change the world if you are in danger of falling apart at things like that? Again, from Hope for Humanity. In any real struggle to deal with any real oppression up against powerful enforcers of that oppression, you're going to have to face the prospect of real sacrifice, including the prospect of being physically attacked. And if you think that you can carve out little safe enclaves, and that is going to somehow lead to any kind of significant change in society, you are full of illusions and delusions.
This is so true, and it reminds me of an experience I had a few years ago on the UC Berkeley campus where I was holding up a sign of stolen lives of people who, were killed by the police, mostly Black and Latino, and calling on people to be part of a protest to stand up against this and fight to put an end to this, and this student came up to me and said, "You're triggering me," and tried to get me to put down the sign and get off of campus, which I didn't do. But this kind of mentality of, oh, you're triggering me because you're showing me the reality of what the police are doing. Never mind the very real triggers being pulled on real human beings and the people who are actually losing their lives, who don't have any goddamn safe space from these police that are shooting them for no good reason or no reason at all. And it also makes me reflect on, like, back in the day in the 1960s, because Bob Avakian's talking about, since when are oppressed people supposed to be fragile beings? It makes me think about the Black Panther Party, who put it all on the line, who were murdered, in the fight for revolution, and went to prison, and made tremendous sacrifices for a better world, or the experience of the Freedom Riders, who are Black and white, mostly college students who went down south, knowing that they were going to be brutalized by the KKK and these white supremacists, and did it anyway because they were fighting for a better world, and we need a lot more of that experience now, because right now these white supremacists, the system will love everyone just staying in their lane and hiding in their safe space while it continues to grind up people's lives. And these white supremacist fascists, are laughing about this, and, they see it as easy prey, these soft crybabies on these college campuses, easy to just steamroll over them.
Yeah, I think, when you speak about the Black Panther Party or the people who went on the freedom rides and all the sacrifice and all of what they stood up to, which was real. You know, when you listen to people talk about it who lived through that, almost to a one, they will say these were the greatest days of their lives, the most meaningful thing they did in their lives, because what they did mattered and it made a difference. It made a difference. And today, in this time when revolution is actually possible, and we have the leadership and we have the strategy, and we are bringing this to students, there is a way not only to stand up to these fascists in this system, but to actually win a whole different world for the nearly 8 billion people on this planet, to really imagine what it would be like to be part of freeing all of humanity. This is what we're bringing people. This is what we're challenging them to lift their sights to and get into, and that they are capable of. But this wokeism is an obstruction and it's a destructive force in the way of that. So this is what we're taking on. You know, the last thing I was hoping you could bring alive from your experience gets to the destructiveness of this wokeism. And it's not just, look, there are all kinds of non-solutions that we need to debate. But this wokeism is not debating. The woke hustlers, the identity politics hustlers, they're not debating. They are shutting down critical thought. They are shutting down debate. And they're intellectual bullies, but they're also thuggish in right on the ground. And I thought you could tell some experience. You've been doing this very creative skit that you and some others came up with, and it solicited some very positive responses from students. But I think you should tell about it and some of the real thuggish behavior that's emerged against you in relation to it.
Yeah. So basically, the skit is I go into a busy cafeteria or cafe and make an announcement. Everyone come hear Sunsara Taylor speaking on woke lunacy versus real revolution. And someone who's acting as a woke identity politics hustler, you know, starts heckling me and says, "Who are you as a white man to be talking about revolution?"
Who are you to talk about revolution as a white man?
I'm a human being who gives a fuck. And I'm someone who's actually studied how the system actually works and why it can't be reformed and why we need revolution to put an end to it.
That's your reality. My reality is totally different.
No, that's objective reality and you should look into it.
There's no such thing as objective reality.
And it goes on from there. You know, but we've had a lot of positive responses. A lot of people turn their heads, what? You know, because this is exactly the kind of discourse like people hear every day on these college campuses. But we've also gotten people who don't seem to realize it's a skit and start siding with the heckler and, you know, yelling at me, you know, get out of here, white man, like you don't have a, you know, fuck you, just yelling profanities and stuff at me and even getting in my face, trying to push me out. It's like you said, it's trying to intimidate. It's trying to suppress discussion rather than opening it up. But all these people were challenging them. Okay, come hear Sunsara Taylor. Come hear this speech.
Well, you know, a lot of people have a sense that this lunacy, this wokeness is unhinged. It's out of control. It is an out of control virus. And a lot of people grumble about it and speak privately about it against it. But we are daring to stand up to it and to radically change it. This is the thuggery that we are going up against, the intellectual framework and straitjacket and the physical intimidation. And you need to be there in the House on May 24th at UCLA. You need to experience this speech. You need to be there for the Q&A, which could get quite controversial. I'm sure it will. And around the country, you need to be part of amplifying this, strengthening this campaign, piercing this woke obstruction and lifting people's sights and putting this revolution on the map. So next Friday, the special screenings of the RNL show, which will feature this speech, tune in wherever you are, Friday, the 26th of May. And if you're in New York City, if you're in Berkeley, go to the Revolution Books screenings and watch it together in Chicago at the Revolution Center, or host a screening wherever you are. Before we have Raphael share a few final closing words calling on you to participate in another way in strengthening this campaign by donating and raising funds, we want to share an excerpt, a very moving excerpt, from the interviews that we did with Bob Avakian last fall, where he speaks about the harm and destructiveness of this cancel culture, the lowered sights of it, and what we have the power to do in opposition to this through a real revolution.
You know, I'll just tell one more story about this. I read in a report that someone said to us about the cancel culture that goes along with all this woke stuff. And I think, look, here's the important thing. The cancel culture is basically based on the notion that people can't change. So you go through someone's life, and if you can find one thing that they did badly, one thing they did wrong, even something really wrong, then that's it for them. They have to be canceled. So you go back, even to somebody's childhood, and sometimes to find something they did. Instead of looking at the whole arc of people's life and what's the main aspect of what their life has been about and what direction are they moving in? Are they moving in look, I look around and I see people who've done bad things. Well, all of us have done bad things, we want to be honest, but people who become committed, revolutionaries, veterans of the U.S. military in Vietnam who did horrific things but became revolutionaries. Now, here's the thing. If your outlook is that people can't change, then obviously nothing meaningful can change. Society can't change. The world can't change. If people can't change, if people don't change and can't change, then you can't make any real change. No fundamental change. So then all you can do is scuffle and scramble to see if you can get a better position within what is. But that's the logic of cancel culture. And I remember, this is the last thing I'll say on this one guy said, and I read this in a report, as a gay black man, the only power I have is canceling people. Now think about how wrong that is. First of all, think about how this woke shit lowers people's sights. That the most you can think of, the only power you can think you have is to bring down other people. Now that's obviously wrong in terms of what you're aiming for. And the morality of it and the political content of it is wrong. But it's also wrong in terms of that is not the only power you have. As an individual, you don't have much power, but as part of a growing revolutionary movement, then your power is magnified and it's no longer your power. It's the power of the collective force of people, not automatons, real living, breathing people who are striving together and struggling with each other over how to actually eliminate everything that makes you say, in the first place, the only power I have as a gay black man is to cancel other people. Let's cancel the whole system, and then let's emancipate people to have humanity on a whole other level. And that's the real power you have as part of that.
So you've heard a lot about the harm of woke identity politics, and you've heard about how Sunsara Taylor is going directly at this and bringing real revolution to the college campuses. Now, I want to ask you to donate to this effort. We've already spent thousands as part of the speaking tour on room rentals and promotional materials, and we're aiming to raise $10,000 in the next couple weeks. Go to revcom.us and print out this fundraising letter from Sunsara. Get it to professors and artists. Take it to art shows and theaters. Everywhere people are thinking about the world. Everywhere people care about injustice and oppression. Everywhere people are straining and groaning under the weight of this wokeness and feeling intimidated by it. They need to know about Sunsara Taylor's speaking tour, and they need to be asked and struggled with to donate to it. Like actually walk right up to people you don't know, knock on the professor's doors, and tell them about this and ask them to donate. Give them the opportunity to do something that would really matter with their money. Raising money for the speaking tour is a major way to spread this revolution and bring many more people into it. If you've never done something like this, now's the time to get out of your comfort zone because the stakes are so high right now. And remember, there are literally millions of people who would love to see this woke lunacy taken on. One person who attended the event in Berkeley said, Sunsara turned wokeness on its head and made it feel comical. She was inspiring. Instead of crawling in the dirt, canceling, and obsessing over identity, she lifted our sights to a real revolution that sets all of humanity free. Afterwards, a throng of young people formed around Sunsara to keep talking and just touch her fearlessness. This needs to be amplified and scaled up nationwide. And you can be part of doing this. Think about the impact that this tour is already having and the much bigger impact we're aiming to have at UCLA and beyond in breaking young people out of the intellectual straitjacket of this woke lunacy, and donate generously. When you contribute to this effort, you're contributing to changing the whole atmosphere in society. Lastly, mark your calendars for a special fundraising live stream Sunday, June 4th, 2 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, as part of raising $100,000 for the revolution as a whole by the summer solstice.